Good morning and thank you to those who've already joined us for the collections webinar. We'll give it a few more minutes while we let a few more people join and then we'll get started. Thank you. Okay, so we're at 2 minutes past. We'll get started. Thank you for joining us this morning for the product tour on the Sage Intacct Collections module. And today we'll be walking through this webinar, which will be just literally walking you through the system. We'll pause for question and answers. So quick introductions here. My name's Laura Lee. For those of you who don't know me, I've worked with Sage Intacct on the direct side for about 3.5 years since we launched Intacct in the UK. And I've been with Sage for about 10 years. I started as an account manager myself, and for the past 1.5 years, I've been building out a team of account managers who are supporting our direct Sage Intacct customers. You'll also have a dedicated customer success member as well. So between account management and customer success, we'll provide all of your in-life support. I'll hand over to you, Martin, to introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, everybody. So just a bit about myself. Some of you might be familiar, have met me before, I don't know. Just about my background is finance positions up to senior board level, working in various different industries. So I came across to Sage Intacct back in summer 2020. So know quite a bit of the various product of the application.
Perfect, thank you, Martin. And I'll just jump into a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll move on to the good stuff of the webinar. So we have a questions box. There's also a chat which goes out to everybody as well. But if you post your questions in the questions box, we will pause throughout the demonstration, but also it'll allow us to monitor it and pick them up after the session if there's anything we need to come back to. There will be a survey at the end of the webinar. Really important to receive your feedback. Also let us know anything else that you might want to see in future webinars, and if anybody who wants any follow-ups or have any specific questions about the session. The recordings are always posted in the community. So if you aren't registered for the community yet, there is a question in the survey to get some assistance with that. The community is really your go-to area for everything Intacct. And there is a function focused group in there, which is where we host all of the on-demand recordings from the previous webinars that we've had and question and answers in there. And then there'll be some next steps right at the end of the session, which will tell you about upcoming sessions. And finally, just really do encourage you to ask as many questions as possible. It really benefits everybody, not just in the session, but people who watch it back. And that's it. Over to you, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've just got a few little slides just to introduce one and really to like emphasize what kind of challenges we're looking to resolve with the collections. Is if you look at where you things are doing today, you're probably making notes outside of an application, you're writing on probably printed documents or something like that, or you're exporting data to Excel and stuff like that. So to try and get that, and what that happens is that you get these silos, and also for continuity, should that obviously that person be lucky enough to win the lottery. I know other events can happen, but let's keep it positive. That you need to be able to pick up the reins from someone who is probably on holiday or something like that, or try and kind of speak to who should we be speaking to with the customer and stuff like that, and being able to do that. There's also some of those areas to say, well, okay, well, we've had a conversation with the customer, and now we also really want to see when is that receipt expected. And also the fact that you might have dunning notices today, or how you email stuff to the customer, is a way of where we want to automate that information as well. And some of that could be a task as well, to say, okay, we need to kind of do something. We need an action because the customer also needs a prompt before they can pay or something like that, or we need to make sure that customer's got everything in place in order to make that payment. Sometimes you hear that the old adage though, oh, I haven't received something or something like that. So, and again, it's making sure that you've got everything in place with the customer. You've made that communication to say, yep, everything's in place. You've got no excuse to make that timely payment. And what we'll be looking in the application is that dashboard, which is going to give you that visibility of what is in place, who's doing something. And in those dashboards, we can see different tasks. We'll be able to see where are that customer. There's a number of dashboards which we're looking at. We're looking at collection cases as well, how those emails and notes and tasks are recorded in the application. Some of that could also be a dunning letter, which could be automated. We look at those dunning letters as well to say the type of different kind of letters that we can automate in there, an AR aging workbench, and look forward to any questions along the way. I will pause in a few places just for that to see whether we got any questions. Otherwise, if anyone doesn't think of anything today and they want to follow up, then we can always come back to those and maybe also do a tailored demonstration for that. Anyway, let's get on with the actual demonstration. So I've logged into the application. I've got one of 3 dashboards that come with the collections module. So just to come to understand exactly, if we just do a drop down here, I've got the dashboard which we're looking at here, which we call the credit controller, which is mainly the person who is going to be doing the actions. There are other dashboards which come out, which have got more detailed kind of information around the metrics, to say where we received on that and what we kind of view the expected activity regarding people, or we can see that we can go into a more metrics one to say how well are we doing with our distribution of workload around the teams as well. We've got some standard reports in there. Now they are all configurable, so it just becomes whatever comes out the box. You can still add your own tailored element to these dashboards to make you feel that whatever you need is right for what you need to follow up. So let's go back to that first dashboard. So you can see here we've got a number of cases. These cases are automatically created as soon as that customer invoice becomes due at a certain time. This rating is an automated value based on aging and value. So there is the pure aging of those debts in the customer. So we can use kind of standard dashboard kind of functionality to drill down to the customer, or we can go into the case record. So if we went into, say, medical research, we can click on here and it'll take us into that case to do that. And we've got now, see the visibility of, we've got an invoice due, we've got payments in there that's been received, we've got some emails, we've got some collection notes, we've got some tasks. We've also got some automated tasks in there that are following up, telling us what to do. There's a few other areas where we can hold information in there. So that kind of same information, although you've got collections cases, you've got the ability to actually go and see that actually in the customer record. So in addition to what you get the standard, you will get to see here additional tab against the customer record. So you can see here that same information is available against the customer as well. There's a few things at the top. You can disable promise to pay, or disable collections, or disable dunning notices and statements and stuff like that. There are instances out there where customers need that ability to do that. Yeah. So just a case of going through a couple of the areas here that we're going to get in the dashboard. So there you've got some tasks. Again, we've picked up already on that medical research channel. There was some tasks on that one. We can see here that we've got notes in there. And I will come to notes again in a couple of ways. You're looking at a dashboard. We can also go where we create a note, or we can actually use the AR aging workbench, as I said, on the expectation of the areas we're going to cover off. And again, you've got a couple of aging reports in there. All right. So what we're going to do now is just go into aspects of the collections module. So here we're going into a module area. So here we've got that kind of, again, you've got that overview aspect of the area that you can go into from previous overview. But let's just look at how we go into the collections. So we're going to go into medical research. That's for actually, let's choose in fact, let's keep it to the places where we know. So how we go about managing this customer or that kind of collection process. So here we've got one invoice. If we just go into the manage collections, so this is where we've got, see, this ability that we've got an invoice here and we want to update it. We just go into the update and click the box, update. Then we can say, right, what do we want to do with that invoice? So it's past due. There may be instances where a customer has now raised a dispute for whatever reason, or that you might want to go back to, I've actually now got a promise today to pay, all right, and now I'm going to put in that new date of when that invoice could be due. All right, and here's another way where we can disable dunning notices against that customer as well. So not saving this one because I need to come back to that at another stage. All right. So just go through this collections module. You can see here that's where we got just been into the collections case. We can also define what our collection stages are. There are a number here which are automated, right? So these then down the bottom are things that you can then manage yourselves to be able to say, okay, well, I've got some extra stages I want to apply to this case or stuff like that. All right. So these top few are automated, but you can create your own actions if you wanted to. All right. So if we just go to dunning notices next, we can see here the dunning notices that have been happened in places. So let's first of all look at the first one that kicked off. So we looked at, say, okay, a courtesy notice. So if we actually view that, this is the kind of email that went out with that kind of letter approach to say, we've got all our logos on there, we've got the person's name, etc. We've got a generic email address for that customer to communicate us with on that one. So that's what the first one is like. A kind of, this is just a reminder that this is due at some stage. All right. So the next stage, it's then moved to the next kind of layer to say, despite that, it's now overdue. So we've got to keep a log of all that. We can say, yep, it definitely was posted. Yep, and we can keep also a log of when that email was opened in the customer accounts as well. So you can get the principle of how that's done. So we will come to dunning notices in a minute of how those templates are configured. All right. So now we can say, obviously, what statements have gone out as well. All right. So number of statements there to do that. So again, this is where we make the notes. You can make a note here by pressing plus, or we can just go in to say what notes are there in the process. So this is an action that's been done by someone, and again, look at that kind of note itself. All right. Or it may be a task. So therefore, what if it was a task, it means that you can then complete that task, or you can reassign it to people and stuff like that. So if you know that you might be off for a few days, you can reassign a task to say, look, this is what's due. We need to do something with this customer. And therefore, what we will say is that we can go into here, go into the edit in here. And this is where you can assign it to a new person to say that. You can also manage when the due date of that task is due for completion. You see it's gone red here, that it's got due for today to do that. All right. We'll pause in a moment because I guess one or two people are itching to ask a question. So there you can see you have approvals and documents in there, stuff like that. Well, we will just jump into this collections admin, but I'm going to pause for a moment. Laura, have we got any questions at the moment?
No, we don't. We're good for questions. Thanks for
That's
checking.
good. Okay. All right. So what we're just going in is this is the configuration of what is possible in the application. Okay. So this is where you can obviously enable done notices by an invoice level, or it can be on a consolidated basis. You can also do statements, so it's going to go on the first day of the month, etc. These are our collections cases. Again, you can add your own cases if you wanted to, so add a collections case and stuff like that of where that will apply. Your EMO preferences, and it could be differently by each of your entities where your dunning notice is going to be assigned to. So also on the customer account, you can also elevate, maybe it needs to go to a different contact when you produce a certain template. It would be that final demand. It goes to the director of the business, provided you've obviously got that contact registered in against the customer account. You can do that. Any preferences, entities could be different, etc. Retail. So then now we're just going to go into the templates. So if you remember when we looked at that first dunning notice, this is where we can able to select, okay, 5 days before the due date of the invoice, this is the template or the letter that's going to go out to that customer. So you can configure it by languages, and you can how you then say where that information is coming from into that email or to that letter to do that. All right. So all this could be configured, and it's just bringing in that right field table to do that. So again, very similar to creating statements, that you can have statements built where the various fields are coming from the original invoice and saying, well, if a customer's made a part payment, you can again bring that balance of the invoice into the statement as well. Okay. So, and again, we've seen the other ways that you can then add templates, and you can create your own templates in there. There are a bit of things on AR aging workbench as well, so how you go through about doing that, and the collections user guide in there to be able to do that, of the modules, how it works. So it's got all that kind of help ability, and there's also some nice YouTube videos for you to be able to see how to do things in that application as well. All right. So what I'm just going to jump into now is the mass emails and promise to don't notices, etc. Is the AR aging workbench. Now,
Martin, I'm not sure if it's a good time to stop for questions, but we have had a couple come through.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let's hear them.
I'll pause now just before. I wasn't sure if you're jumping into an entirely separate section, but so we've had from Karen, hello, do credit notes show on statements sent from the collections platform?
I would have to probably say that may be down to configuration. So that may be a yes. I don't see the ways we can do that, because if it's just bringing a table in there, but you also need to be aware of what notes could be in there there might be some notes on there you may not want to share always with the customer. That's my
Okay, well,
only kind of thought process on that one. But yeah, in theory, yes, it's configurable.
Okay, well, Karen, I recommend that we'll reach out to you after this and we can set up something where we can do a bit of testing and a bit of a one-to-one demo with you. Thank you, Martin. And Palvi has asked, hi, can the notes section be consolidated or will they always be separate? Thank you.
Separate. I probably need to ask what does he mean by wanting to be separate, because the notes are always going to be on the customer account. Now, we have also get feedback from customers. They rather than making notes against the actual document itself, they want to make notes at like a head level or top level, or whatever you want to call it, on the customer. So that is all configurable. Speak to the product manager with that. Has been a request. That's been that. So I'm just going to show you another way about bringing notes in here. You just say I've opened up this AI aging workbench. So this is just almost like a, what do I call this? A very interactive aging. Normally what you get, you print them off on a kind of be able to sort them yourself, so you can get a little bit more interactive with it, such as you can make notes and tasks in there. So I can sort on things in here. So if I want to look and say what's the oldest overdue by a kind of a value basis to do that, or I can say by based on the oldest in number of days, I can do that way. Also by task as well, to say, okay, well, I've got some tasks on here. Let's have a look at these tasks. So let's look at our good old friend medical search here. I'm just going in here to tasks. Now, while that's loading, I have been speaking to the product management. They have got some actually new stuff coming out into the product, which is quite exciting. So you might say, oh, some new stuff coming out of there. I might wait for that to come out. No, it's always a good time to get in, because we always listen to what customers feedback into the product itself. So we always take that kind of, this is the use case and whatever, and look to bring that in there. So there's a number of different items. I can't say what they were because I don't want to spoil that surprise into the stage. And I obviously, anything coming out can always be dependent on time zones and lags as well, and commitments to do that. So there is product functionality being developed. It's always a good time to get into the product and help develop it. So we've got some of these automated tasks, and if you can see, remember here, if we just click on one of these, we can say, okay, we can then, so making sure that the date on here is accurate. We can reassign it to people if we wanted to, or we can say that task is now complete, and then that will disappear or stuff like that. So we can always create a new task as well to do that. So if we just go up here, cancel, and then you can create a new task and submit that task as well, which will then add against that to do that. All right. So at the moment, the way this is set up is by a kind of invoice to be able to do that, to say, okay, which invoice do you want to approach? Let's do that one, etc. And then as we go through the task, who are we going to give it to, etc. Right. So there's that. We can just go back to the customer, or we can go back right back to the main page. All right, so that's that one. All right. One thing I missed to mention on that one, just go back into aging. These reports, okay. So also what I hear from time to time is the ability to extract these reports. So here in this, if I look in here, we've got some number of standard reports in here. We can say a promise today paid or last note. Again, that was a customer requirement to say, well, okay, could you have a report that shows us all the various notes that we've made? So is our note here, if I just put this to 10. So this is just a case of seeing that I've got a number of notes on there. I can filter by those notes. I can filter by the date. I can filter by the stage if I wanted to. I can go into the actual note itself, go to the customer account, etc. But what also is to be able to extract this information out as well. So there was one report which is AR. So if I just bring that across, just show you how I've extracted the type of report that come out there. So this one came out in customer order, There's no reason why you can always do on due date, etc., but it just shows you the ability to extract that information into Excel should you wish to, and stuff like that. Right? Again, it's making sure that the data is in the application to start off with. So that's what just one note on there. And we can also do other notes in there. I think that one I printed off was the AR forecast. So if I just show you that what we did here is, first of all, it's going to load all that data. If we just put in here 50 lines and stuff like that, it came out in this order, but I could have wisely due on the due date to be able to print that off, etc. And then I can also see from there whether a promise to date has been paid as well. So that might be another useful way of sort of like managing my old debts to say, what is actually going on here? What are we got tasks to do that, right? Any more questions yet, Laura?
Yeah, Karen, who asked the question earlier, she did say that they don't have the AR aging workbench tab. So is that just something in their settings that needs to be changed? I presume everyone should have that.
It should be able to do it. It should be in the collections module. Again, if you're not seeing this, that's raise a ticket. Let's get this resolved to do that, and we can get product to do in there. So there are AR
perfect,
aging on there to be able to do that. All right. So if you're
Thank
struggling,
log a ticket. Yeah, perfect advice. Thank you, Martin.
Okay. I haven't got any more actually areas to cover off without detail, to be honest. One thing about emails is you can do emails in the application, or you can drag your own emails that you may have created into the application. So to create an email in here, you can say from exactly and to. You can bring in templates for that type of thing. So people talk about being able to bring in their logos and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely, you can bring that into the application as well to do that. Okay. So I'm going to logos particularly loaded on there, but you can see how we do that. All right. Very similar to what we did before. We can actually do it by set the customer, by an invoice and stuff like that to be able to do that. Then you can obviously preview it and send it. You could also do attachments to that email if you need to. Again, probably the invoices themselves will be part of it. There could be some supporting information to do that. So, yeah, very similar to how statements work, etc. I know mine obviously for demo purposes they're all failed because we didn't want to actually particularly send them out, but it just shows you how you get that kind of that information in there. So, got nothing else to say. Again, people might have some particular areas that they might want to work through. Let's get that individual case and work through that. If it's outside my knowledge bank, then we always have direct access to the product managers to be able to do that. So again, feedback to the product manager to be able to help improve the solution. I'm done on that one. So therefore,
okay.
Yep.
That everything there for collections, is it, or is that just that section?
Yeah, no, I've done everything that I was going to cover off today because I think that covers it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's short and sweet for collections. So we've had a good few questions there. If anybody would like further discussions, we'd be happy to arrange a one-to-one discussion. As Martin has referred to a few times there, the collections module is quite configurable, and we do have a specific team, the product team, who really work on this in terms of development and building it out to customer requirements. So it could be a specific bespoke requirement if it's something really niche to you, or it could be more of a mass update that goes out to everyone. So any questions, any kind of additions to what you might have seen today, please use the survey, and your account manager or business partner will reach out, and we'll be happy to go through this one-on-one with you, or even put you in touch with the development team as well if there's anything that isn't there yet that you'd like to see. So just moving on to what's next. So of course, complete the survey at the end of this session. Register for the community if you haven't already. It's a really, really useful site. It's not just for customers who are live. So if you're still going through implementation, You still register for the community. You can't log tickets until you're live, but you can still use all of the resources there. There's about 20,000 members of Intacct users and Intacct colleagues and support services. So really utilize the different resources that are on there. And in terms of webinars that are coming up, so we run 2 types of webinars here. Lunch and Learn is run by customer success, and that's all about utilizing the functionality that's available to you in the standard system. So everyone has access to it, and it's all about top tips and really getting the most out of the system, learning from people with experience. And that's about utilizing budgets. So make sure you've got your budgets in Intacct and you know how to use them. Everyone can do that. And the function focus webinars, which are on today, is more about additional functionality that comes through modules. So we've covered collections there, and the next one in June does follow on quite nicely from the budgets, and that's all about using the purchasing workflows and the spend management module. And spend management essentially ties in purchasing workflows to budgets. So quite a budget focused June. So please join us for those webinars, and we will be sending out invites throughout the usual comms and through the community. But thank you very much for joining. We'll follow up from any questions on the survey and any requests for contact. Finished up nice and early today because it's quite a simple module. So thank you everybody, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.